The whistle hadn't even finished screaming. She was already moving, not fast, not desperate, just precise. The training hangar was packed. 43 recruits, sweat-soaked and loud, pressing against the mat's edge like they could sense what was coming. And what was coming was 6'2" of fury with clenched fists and a jaw that had never once been told no. He swung. She stepped left, barely an inch, just enough. He swung again, harder this time. The kind of force that doesn't belong in a training drill, the kind that belongs somewhere darker. The third hit connected. She dropped. The room went quiet in a way. Rooms only go quiet when something has gone very, very wrong. He stepped toward her, still moving, still coming, and then a hand, one hand. Around his wrist, nobody saw where the man came from. 1 second the corner was empty. The next, he was just there, still, steady, like the eye of something enormous. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The entire room held its breath, because the man holding Wade Harmon's wrist wasn't looking at Wade at all. He was looking at her, at the woman on the floor, at the dog tag that had slipped from her pocket, and something crossed his face. Something no one in that room could name, but every single person felt it. The sun was barely up when Reva Doyle walked into Camp Ridgeline. Red dust, cold air, the smell of rubber and old sweat. She stood in formation with her uniform pressed sharp and her hair pulled back tight, not because the rules required it, because she needed one thing, just one thing, to be in her control before the day started. She had arrived 2 days ago, transferred from an intelligence unit. File thin, background vague. Nobody knew much about her, which was, in her experience, exactly how she preferred it. 43 recruits stood in that yard. Some were there for the adrenaline. Some had something to prove. Some didn't know why they were there at all. Reva knew. She kept that to herself. Fraster Chief Brennan blew the whistle at 5:15. Gray-eyed, weathered, the kind of man who didn't repeat himself and expected you to have heard it the first time. She respected that immediately. The drills were designed to find your ceiling, physical first. Then cognitive, problem-solving tasks buried inside exhaustion. Small decisions made when the brain had nothing left. Smart. She had to admit that. She ran every circuit, carried every load, did not slow down, did not adjust. She was genuinely, authentically tired. She was not going to show a single molecule of it. Wade Harmon noticed her on the first morning. He was hard to miss. 6'2", broad. The particular posture of a man who had never once been told to sit down and wait his turn. He stood at the far end of formation with 2 others. Decker Sloan, whose face seemed permanently arranged around a smirk, and Cass Birch, who laughed at everything Decker said and looked confused when Decker didn't say something worth laughing at. Wade was their center of gravity, and he had decided Reva was his. She walked past them that first morning without slowing down. Hey. His voice. Flat, already certain of itself. Intel transfer. She kept walking, not because she was afraid, but because stopping meant responding. And responding meant he was setting the terms. She didn't let other people set the terms. I said, hey, she turned, on her own schedule. Slowly enough to make the point, she looked at him. I heard you, she said. That was all. 3 seconds of eye contact. Then she turned and kept walking. Behind her, Decker made a noise. Half laugh, half something else. Wade said nothing, which was, in its own way, louder than anything. She walked away thinking. Noted. The water break came 40 minutes in. Bodies scattered toward the shade. Bottles appeared. The collective exhale of 50 people who had been suffering together and were finally allowed to admit it. Reva found a spot near the barracks wall. Controlled breathing, posture straight. She was genuinely deeply tired, and she was not going to show it. 3 shadows fell over her. Of course they did. Wade, Decker, Cass, arranged in a loose triangle that was designed to look casual and was completely not. Still ignoring us? Decker said. I'm drinking water, she replied. Decker looked at Wade. Wade looked at Reva. This isn't your intel desk, he said. Out here, respect matters. She looked at him the way she looked at things she was studying. Direct, without apology, and she thought, you are not as certain as you're pretending to be. Something in you is working very hard to establish something. I wonder what. Before he could say anything else, Brennan's whistle cut through the air. Form up. Wade held her gaze one more second. Then he backed off with the slow deliberateness of someone who wants you to know they chose to walk away. She turned back toward the yard and thought, I see you, Wade Harmon. All of you. The sparring session was announced after lunch. She had been expecting it, not because she had inside information, because it was the logical next step. Physical assessment in a controlled environment, pairs selected with enough randomness to look fair and enough intention to be anything, but she had seen this before. She changed her hand wraps in the back of the locker room, methodical, each layer flat, no gaps. The kind of care that looks routine but is deeply deliberate. She was not afraid of sparring. She was realistic about it. She was 5'5" and 132 pounds. Person most likely to be selected as her partner was built like he had been assembled by someone who took architecture very seriously. She knew what that meant in pure physics terms. She also knew that pure physics was rarely the whole equation. The training hangar was larger than it looked from outside. High ceilings, mats arranged down the center, recruits lining the edges with that particular electric energy of people who are about to watch something and are trying not to look like they're looking forward to it. Brennan called pairs. One by one, she stood near the middle section, and she knew, before the words came out, that she had already been selected. Doyle. Harmon, a murmur moved through the crowd. She stepped onto the mat, gloves on, chin down, weight balanced. Wade stepped on from the other side. He came forward hard, too hard. Already, before the first 10 seconds, she moved left, 2 inches, just enough. His swing passed her ear close enough that she felt the air move. He reset, came again. She dropped her weight, angled right. Let his momentum carry him one step further than he planned. She heard someone say, did she just? She did, but she kept her face empty, kept her breathing even. Every move he made told her something. How he loaded his weight, where he telegraphed, how fast he recovered when something didn't land. She was collecting data until the data stopped being useful, because on the third exchange, something changed. Force behind it was wrong. His shoulder hit her sternum and she went back 2 steps. Arms came up, a fraction too slow. His fist connected across her jaw. The world whited out, not dramatically, just cleanly, like a screen going blank. She was still upright. The second hit came before she was ready, her temple, and the floor came up dark. Then nothing. Then that underwater silence that felt almost peaceful, which was, some distant part of her brain noted, a concerning sign. She was down, out cold, on the mat in front of 43 people, and Wade stepped toward her, still coming. A hand, one hand, around his wrist. Nobody saw where the man came from. 1 second the corner was empty. The next he was just there, still, steady, like the eye of something enormous. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Step back. Wade tried to pull free. Couldn't, sir, she provoked. He never finished the sentence. One controlled movement. Wrist twisted down. Wade dropped to his knees. With a sound that made everyone in the room wince, Decker charged forward. The man moved like water, sidestepped, caught Decker's arm, used his own momentum, put him flat on the mat in under 2 seconds. Cast didn't move at all. The man simply looked at him. The cast stayed exactly where he was. The room was dead silent. Master Chief Brennan appeared at the edge of the mat. He looked at the man. Something passed between them, the exchange of 2 people who know each other well enough to talk in silence. Brennan gave a single nod. The man knelt beside Reva gently, checking her pulse, the back of her head, his expression, controlled, focused, but underneath it, something else. Something that had nothing to do with the drill. She's breathing, he said quietly. She just got hit harder than this room allows. He looked up at Wade, still on his knees, still unable to meet the man's eyes. You hit an unprepared opponent twice, the man said, while she was already falling. 1 beat. That's not training. That's cowardice. The word landed in the room like something dropped from a great height. Nobody moved. His name was Gideon Marsh, Lieutenant Commander, Navy SEAL. Back from an overseas assignment 36 hours ago, scheduled to observe, nothing more. Medics arrived with a stretcher. Reva waved it off. She was conscious now, disoriented, moving slowly. But she waved off the stretcher and chose to walk, one hand on the medic's arm, spine straight, chin level. She walked out of the training hangar on her own feet. Outside, the light was brutal, direct. She squinted. The medic guided her toward the infirmary without speaking, which she appreciated. Medic cleaned the cut near her temple. Small, neat, efficient. Gideon Marsh, the medic said, in the tone of someone offering information they find interesting. He doesn't usually intervene. What usually makes him intervene? The medic considered. Honestly, I've never seen him intervene before. She filed that away. She laced her boots, stood up, walked out. Gideon Marsh was standing outside. Of course he was, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, looking at the middle distance like it had said something worth considering. She stopped. He straightened, didn't move toward her. Thank you, she said, quietly, because she meant it. Yes, he replied. Just that. No, you're welcome. No, it was nothing. A direct acknowledgement that he had done what needed to be done and was not going to pretend otherwise. I should have blocked better, she said. It was reflex, the way she processed things. Back to analysis. What could have been different? He shook his head. He didn't give you a chance. There's no technique that defends an illegal hit when someone twice your weight decides the rules don't apply. She exhaled slowly. I didn't want special attention. You're not getting special attention, he said. You're getting fairness. Before she could respond, Brennan appeared at the corner of the building, Lieutenant Commander. A moment. Gideon nodded, looked at Reva once more, like he was deciding something and had just decided it. Get some rest, he said. She turned and walked toward the barracks. She didn't look back, but she listened. And what she heard, very faintly, before the distance took the voices. Brennan, did you know who she was? Gideon. I know who her father was. She kept walking. Her pace didn't change, but something behind her ribs, something she hadn't felt in a long time, shifted. Like a door in a quiet house opening an inch. She did not allow herself to think about it, not yet. Brennan's office. Late afternoon, the light through the window made his expression hard to read, which was, Gideon suspected, intentional. You need to understand something, Brennan said. He didn't sit, just stood near the window. This course runs on the perception of fairness. Actual fairness, yes. But perception too. Those are not always the same thing. Gideon said nothing. I'm not questioning what you did, Brennan continued. Harmon crossed a line. You addressed it. Good, but you know who she is. I know who her father was. Same thing in this context, Brennan turned. Looked at him directly. If anyone in this camp starts to believe Reva Doyle is getting special consideration because of Patrick, she won't be able to survive it. Not the training. The people. They'll turn it into something that follows her. Asterisk after everything she accomplishes. Gideon was quiet. I know, he said finally. She doesn't know you knew him. Does she? Not a question. She suspects something, Gideon said. She's too observant not to, but she doesn't know. Brennan nodded slowly. She is one of the strongest candidates I've seen in 3 years of running this selection. Top 12%. Top 8 on problem-solving assessments. She is here because she earned it, I know. Then you know the most important thing you can do for her is nothing. Brennan looked at him. Long. Yes, he said. Exactly that. He left without further ceremony. Gideon sat in the empty room. He thought about Patrick Doyle, about the decision made in 2 seconds in a situation that would never appear in any official report, about the particular weight of a debt that doesn't leave you. He had been carrying it for 8 years. He had not expected it to walk into Camp Ridgeline wearing her father's eyes. He had not expected it to hit him quite like that. He stood up, went back into the camp, and he thought, I will be in the corner, watching, saying nothing, Because that was what Patrick Doyle's daughter needed. Not rescue, witness. Barracks were quiet in the middle of the afternoon. Reva found her bunk at the far end. The one she had chosen because it had the wall on one side and a clear sightline to the door. Old habit. She sat down, reached inside her jacket. The dog tag was there. It was always there. Small metal, edges worn smooth from years of handling. Not from combat. From fingers. From being taken out and held and put back. Over and over, in a way you handle something that matters too much to leave alone. Patrick Doyle. Sergeant First Class. Her father's name. She held it in her palm and looked at it the way she had looked at it 10,000 times. And thought about the afternoon when she was 19. The knock on the door, the two men in uniform. The world reorganizing itself around a single piece of information that changed the shape of everything. She had graduated from her childhood in that doorway. Become, in 30s, a different kind of person. A person who understood the world doesn't offer guarantees. The people you love can be taken by forces that don't consult you. The only rational response is not fear. It's preparation, competence. The kind of armor built not from indifference, but from choosing, every single day, to be useful rather than fragile. Her father had understood that. He had tried to teach her before he left. She put the dog tag back where it belonged, picked up her notebook, kept moving because that was discipline, not the cold, punishing kind, the warm kind, the kind that says, you're allowed to feel it, you're also allowed to put it down. Her father had taught her that too. She was still learning. Morning after always tells you more than the incident itself, not the morning after a battle. The morning after a humiliation. That's when you find out who people actually are. Reva was dressed before the lights came up. Formation before half the camp found their boots. And she watched. The ones who glanced at her bandage and looked away fast. The ones who made a point of not looking at all. The ones, fewer than she expected, who met her eyes and held them. A nod. Nothing spoken. Just, I see you. Those ones she remembered. Wade was at the far end of the not looking at her, which was more deliberate than looking at her would have been, because Wade Harmon was not stupid. She had never thought he was stupid. Impulsive, yes. Running on an engine he hadn't examined, but not stupid. And a smart person, after yesterday, doesn't escalate in the same direction. He finds a different direction. She knew that. She just didn't know yet which one. She found out by mid-morning. Not with a confrontation, with a whisper, the soft corrosive thing that moves through a group the way water moves through rock. Slowly, patiently, finding every small crack and working it wider. By the second circuit of the morning run, she felt it. The shift. The particular atmosphere of people who have been talking about you adjusting themselves when you come near. She kept running. And she thought, so that's the direction. Not fists, words. The story going around was this. Reva Doyle had connections. Reva Doyle knew Gideon Marsh from before. Reva Doyle was not going to be held to the same standard as everyone else, because someone up the chain had already decided she was special. The details shifted, depending on who was telling it. Some version involved a prior relationship. Some version was deliberately vague, impossible to refute directly. Which was, she recognized, the most sophisticated version. You can't argue with a fog. You can only stand in it and wait. She kept running her circuits, because the alternative, stopping, confronting, demanding to know who said what, would have confirmed every version simultaneously. Fiona found her at the water break. Harmon's been talking, Fiona said, quietly, not looking at her, both of them facing the yard, about Marsh, about you and Marsh. Nothing specific, just implying. You know how that works, I know. Fiona glanced sideways. You don't look particularly bothered. I'm bothered. I'm just not showing it. Fair enough. A pause, for what it's worth. I don't believe it, I know, Reva said. She had read Fiona on day one. Empirical. The kind of person who forms opinions from evidence rather than atmosphere. Fiona walked away. Reva looked at the yard, thought, different direction, Wade. I see it. Now I have to figure out what to do about it. Except there was no clean answer. Against a physical threat, you prepare a physical response. Against a false narrative, you have two options: wait it out or demonstrate. Neither guarantees anything. She chose demonstrate, not in an obvious way. She just performed. Every drill, every assessment, every task in front of her, done completely, with the full attention it deserved. Because a thing worth doing is worth doing all the way, and anything else is a form of lying. She didn't see Gideon until late afternoon. He appeared in the observation post at the northwest edge of the training area, slightly elevated. Clear sightline to everything below. She clocked him on her third circuit, immediately looked away. Kept her stride even, thought don't look again. Because if you look again, you give Wade exactly the image he needs. Two people making eye contact across a training yard. That's the whole story, right there. For anyone watching, she didn't look again, which cost her something. She wasn't sure why. She didn't know this man. Had spoken to him for a total of maybe 90 seconds. He was, in any practical sense, a stranger who happened to have information about her father she didn't have access to and desperately wanted. That was all. Except it wasn't all, and she knew it, and she didn't like knowing it. So she ran her circuits and did not look to the observation post and filed the whole thing under. Later, the equipment room, 1,700 hours. She was returning gear from the afternoon session, methodical, alone. She liked this room. Organized. Every object with a place. She was replacing the last harness when she heard Decker's voice outside the door. She was not technically listening, she just couldn't turn it off. He call yet? A pause, then a second voice. Low, deliberate, he said, keep going. She stays another week, it's a problem. Reva's hand stilled. She waited 30 seconds. Then she took her notebook from her back pocket. 1700 higher S. Equipment room. Decker. Unknown voice. External contact. Directive. Remove subject from camp. Framed it plumb. She underlined external contact, put the notebook away, and thought, so it isn't just Wade. Someone outside this camp wanted her gone. Someone with reach. Someone who had chosen Wade as the visible instrument while the actual mechanism ran quieter. Further back, the hacked fitness scores sat differently now. Not error, not coincidence. Someone had manipulated her assessment results with precision. 3 points under threshold. Exactly enough to justify removal, not random. Calculated. She thought, I need to know how high this goes. And then, I can't ask Gideon. The moment I bring him in, it becomes the story Wade has already been circulating. I have to do this myself, which was fine. She was good at doing things herself. She had been doing things herself since she was 19. He found her that evening. She was on the low steps outside the barracks. Notebook open on her knee. The light going amber over the ridgeline. That brief warm color that feels like an apology for the cold coming. He sat down, not close. Not far. She finished the sentence she was writing. Then, I didn't ask you to do that. No, and I'm not going to now, I know. She looked at him, the way she had looked at him on the mat. Not to challenge, to actually see. He was looking at the middle distance, giving her the option of being examined without being watched. Interesting choice. You knew my father, she said. Not a question. He turned, met her eyes. Yes, how? One word. The full weight of 8 years in it, overseas deployment, he said. 8 years ago. Small team. Your father was attached as senior NCO on a sensitive handoff operation. He was the best I've ever seen at reading a room, at knowing when something had shifted before anyone else processed it. He stopped, started again. We were in a situation that had shifted. He acted before most of us understood what was happening. Silence. He died in that situation. She said, yes, because of a decision he made. A decision that saved at least 2 people. A pause, possibly more. She exhaled slowly. Were you one of them? He didn't answer immediately, which was its own answer. Yes, he said finally. She looked away. This was the part where most people would cry. She understood that. But she had cried for her father in private, the way you learn, when you have a mother who needed you to be the steady one. And now tears were something she kept for rooms with no one in them, he used to say, she said, her voice level, quiet, that the most dangerous thing a person could do was assume they knew someone's limits before they'd been tested. He was right. I know he was right. And then, unexpectedly, he was also infuriating to argue with, because he was right most of the time, and he knew it and never said so directly, which somehow made it worse. The corner of Gideon's mouth moved. Almost a smile. He was the same with the team, he said. You'd think you'd found the flaw in his thinking. Then the situation would prove him right, and he'd say nothing, nothing, never, and I told you so, never. That drove people insane, absolutely insane. A beat of silence that was different from before. Something that had been clenched slightly had let go. Then she said, I need you to stay out of what's happening. The ease went out of the air. Whatever you believe you owe him, it doesn't transfer to me. I'm not him. I'm not something you get to protect in his place. Gideon was quiet. I know that, he said. Then act like it. He looked at her. What's happening? Not a deflection. A direct question. Like he was offering to be useful in a different way than she was expecting. She almost told him. She stopped herself because she wasn't ready, didn't have enough yet. And in intelligence work, you don't share incomplete information with people who might act on it, however good their intentions, until you know what action is possible. I'm handling it, she said. Okay, just that. Okay. No argument. No insistence. Like he trusted her to mean it. Which, unexpected. She had been braced for the other version. The version where the debt and the rank combined into something well-meaning and completely unhelpful. Instead, okay, you're not gonna ask me anything else, she said. You'll be when you're ready. Or you won't. A pause. You're not a report I'm owed, she thought. Who taught you that? She thought. I wonder if my father taught you that. She said neither thing. Gideon looked at the yard. He talked about you. Not often. But enough, he was selecting carefully. He said you were going to be the kind of person who walked into rooms that weren't built for her and built better ones. She did not trust her voice. For approximately 4 seconds. He said that? Yes. He couldn't have known that. He knew. She looked down at the notebook in her hands. Her handwriting, neat, controlled. Her father's handwriting had been nothing like it. Bigger, looser. The handwriting of someone with too many thoughts to keep them in neat lines. She had her mother's handwriting. Her father's stubbornness, his inability to walk away from something unfinished. I should go in, she said. Yes. She stood, looked at him once more. Thank you for telling me. You deserve to know. She went inside. Brennan called her to his office at 11:30 before the first formation, which was never a sign that something routine was about to happen. He was behind his desk, 2 pieces of paper in front of him. He looked at her when she came in with that precise compression around his eyes that communicated his opinion without requiring him to express it directly. Sit down, Doyle. She sat. There's a discrepancy in your physical assessment record. I know, she said. He looked at her. You know, the posted score is not my score. I track my metrics independently. I can give you the exact figures. A beat. You track them independently. Yes, sir. I do that. He studied her. Like she had confirmed a hypothesis. The correct score has been located. Administrative review is underway. He paused. The corrected score places you above threshold. I know. You're not going to ask me how it happened. I have my own thoughts about how it happened. He put both papers face down. Doyle, I'm going to say something I won't put in writing, and you're going to hear it and factor it into how you proceed. Understood. There are people at this camp with an interest in the outcome of your assessment. Who they are, why, that's not something I can speak to directly. She kept her face still. But you're aware of it. I'm observant, he said. Not an answer. Completely an answer. What do you need from me, she said. Nothing. He picked up the papers again. I need you to perform. Results that cannot be argued with. That's the only protection available to you here. She stood. The review. Will it be completed before the final assessment? Yes. And the result will stand. I will see to it personally. She nodded once, dismissed. She walked out of the office into cold morning air. The sun cutting above the ridgeline. Dust going gold. Brennan knew. The problem was contained enough to manage, or at least he believed it was. And Brennan was not a man who believed things casually. 2 days before the final assessment. 2 days enough, if she used them right. She went to the first formation. Wade was across the yard. This time he looked at her, not with the aggression of before, with something more careful. The look of someone who has made a move and is watching to see if it landed. She met his eyes 3 seconds. Then she turned and faced forward. She was so certain she heard, the small exhale of a man who is not sure what he just saw. Good. Keep him uncertain. The evening before the final assessment, she sat on the steps of the training hall. Water bottle. Notebook closed on her knee. She was not reviewing. She had reviewed everything she could. She was sitting in the last ordinary hour that existed before tomorrow made everything different. Gideon came. She had half expected it. He sat at a distance, like before. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow, she agreed. A pause. You ready? Not a question, more like, say it out loud. Not for me. For yourself, she thought about it honestly. I don't know, she said. I think I'm ready. I can't know until I'm in it. He nodded slowly. That's the most honest answer. My father would have had a better one. Your father would have said, I'm as ready as the situation requires. A pause. And then looked at you like that was obviously the only possible answer. Which it is, he added. She surprised herself. She laughed small, brief, real. The kind that comes not because something is funny, but because something is true. And the truth of it arrives at the same time as the recognition of it, and the only exit is a sound. Gideon looked at her when she laughed. He smiled. The real version, not the almost smile from before. The full thing, a little tired, a little warm. The smile of someone who doesn't use it often and is somewhat unprepared for this one. She looked away before she had to classify what that was. Then Wade came around the corner, because of course he did. He stopped when he saw them. His face did the calculation, fast, satisfied. The certainty of a man who has found exactly what he was looking for. She stood up before he could speak. Wade, she said quietly. No aggression. He looked at her with something new. Something closer to contempt than anger. Figures, he said. One word, she let it sit. Then you fought hard today, the afternoon circuit. I watched the carry. He blinked, didn't expect that. Dropped the weight distribution at the left shoulder on heavy carries, she said. It costs you about 40 seconds every rep. The final assessment has a heavy carry component. For 40 seconds a rep is the difference between passing and not. He stared at her. What are you doing, he said. Telling you something true. Because it's useful. She picked up her water bottle, started back toward the barracks. She didn't look back, but she heard, at the edge of her perception, Wade Harmon standing in the fading light saying absolutely nothing. Just standing there, like a man who has been handed something and has no idea what to do with it, she thought. Tomorrow will tell us who everyone actually is, and I know who I am. She walked back inside as the last light died over Camp Ridgeline. For the first time in a very long time, she was not afraid of what came next. Not because she was certain of the outcome, because she was certain of herself, which was the only certainty that had ever mattered. The morning of the final assessment arrived the way important mornings always do, without ceremony, no dramatic weather. No sign from the universe, just the same red dust and cold air, and the whistle at 5:15 cutting through the dark like any other day. It wasn't any other day, and everyone knew it. Reva was already dressed when the whistle blew. She had slept 4 hours, which was, for her, sufficient. The assessment began at 700, 3 sections, run sequentially, no breaks between physical first. She ran the first circuit clean, left shoulder taped differently this morning. She had tested the modification twice in the bathroom at 4 a.m. It held the carries came next. Brutal. Fixed 43 kilos across a 40-meter course. Repeated. She didn't think about the total. She thought about one rep. Then the next. Her father had said it to her once on a long drive when she was 12 and complaining about how far they still had to go. Don't drive the whole trip. You just drive to the next exit, next exit, next exit, next exit. She completed the carries. She did not look at the clock. She did not look at Wade, though she was aware of him, the way you're aware of weather at the edge of your vision. His left shoulder was compounding exactly as she had predicted. He was losing time. His face held the particular compression of a man, refusing to acknowledge pain in the presence of others. She said nothing. She ran her next circuit. The tactical element came after a 3-minute transition, a simulated command breakdown. A recruit named Tomas, capable, steady, was positioned as designated leader. He received conflicting information from 2 sources simultaneously and had to make a call with incomplete data. Reva was assigned secondary advisor, which meant she had information Tomas didn't, information he had that she couldn't verify. She recognized the scenario immediately. Elegant. Not testing physical performance. Testing whether you could hold your position when the situation was uncomfortable. Whether you gave your information clearly without overreaching. Whether you trusted another person to make the call even when you weren't certain they'd make the one you'd make. She did her job. She gave Tomas what he needed when he needed it. Not before, not after, and when he made the call, a different one than she would have made, she supported it without hesitation, because that was the job, not to be right, to be useful, Thomas made the right call, as it turned out, which was satisfying. But beside the point was she had trusted him. At the moment when she was least certain, and trust extended at that moment. That particular moment, it is not nothing, it's everything. She watched Brennan's face during the debrief, unreadable, as always. But something in the quality of his stillness had shifted. She had learned, over 10 days, what that shift meant. He had seen what he needed to see. The collaborative evaluation. 2 recruits. 1 scenario. Designed to require both. Designed so that neither one could complete it alone. The pairings were posted on the board outside the main building. She walked to the board. Read her name. Write the name beside it. Stood very still for 3 seconds. Turned and walked back toward the compound. Wade Harmon. Of course. Absolutely of course. Because Brennan, unreadable, precise, infuriating Brennan, had designed this. She was certain of it, not randomly, with the specific intention of a man. The most important thing a course like this could measure was not whether you could perform when conditions were favorable, but whether you could perform when they absolutely were not. She found Wade at the equipment station, his back to her, reading the scenario details. Left shoulder set higher than the right. The compensation visible even from behind. Harmon. He turned. They looked at each other. No audience. No performance. Just 2 people too tired to maintain constructed versions of themselves. You saw the board, he said. Yes, of course it's you. Of course it's me, she agreed. He looked away. Then back. Left shoulder's done, I know. Going to cost us. Only if you let it, she said it without judgment. Like a fact. I'll take the load-bearing elements. You take navigation. Your spatial reading is faster than mine and you know it. He stared at her. I've been watching, she said, simply. You read terrain fast. Faster than anyone in this group. That's not nothing. That's the most important thing in the second half of the scenario. He was quiet then. Why are you telling me this? Because we need to pass. Together. And I'm not interested in failing something because I can't put 10 days of whatever this has been aside for 2 hours. He looked at her for a long time. The different versions of Wade Harmon fighting for the controls. The one his father had built, the one he'd been performing, and the quieter one. Further back, less practiced, the one that was actually him. Fine, he said. 1 word. Sufficient. The scenario took place in the East Field, and 2 adjoining structures simulated their extraction. Time constraint. Physical obstacles, and decision points woven together in a sequence that required 2 people operating with genuine coordination. Not just proximity, actual communication. Actual trust. Reva didn't think about trust. She thought about the next exit. They moved. The first section was physical. She took it. Carried what needed to be carried with the focused efficiency of someone who has managed every variable she can manage and is simply pitted to the action. Her jaw. Her shoulder. The accumulated weight of 10 days. Present, acknowledged. Irrelevant to the immediate task, Wade ran the perimeter call. He read the terrain fast. She watched his eyes move and make decisions in real time. Adjustments she wouldn't have known to make. Angles she hadn't calculated. She followed his directions without hesitation because she had done her own assessment. And his directions were correct. They hit the 3rd section. the combined element. At the 7-minute mark, 2 minutes ahead of estimate, something had clicked. She felt it. The shift of a partnership that has become real, where you stop tracking the other person as a variable and start tracking the problem together, where the space between two people becomes cooperative instead of careful. She had not expected to feel that. Not with Wade Harmon, not today. They hit the final obstacle, a combined carry over a raised structure. His shoulder was finished. She could see it in how he held his arm. But he hadn't said anything, was managing it with the stubborn dignity of a man who has told his body it doesn't have permission to stop. Switch, she said. I've got it. Switch, Wade. He looked at her. Give me the anchor, she said. You take guide position. It works better this way. Trust me, the longest beat of the entire assessment. Then he moved to guide position. She took the anchor. They cleared the obstacle. Thomaser stopped. 11 minutes and 43 seconds. 4 minutes and 17 seconds under threshold. She stood in the middle of the field with her hands on her knees and just breathed. Specific relief of a body that has done a very hard thing and is now briefly allowed to simply exist. Wade was 2 meters away. Also breathing, she walked over. Held out her hand, not forgiveness, not a performance of resolution. Just, we did this. It was real. That's worth acknowledging. He looked at her hand. Then he took it brief, firm. Then, quiet enough that only she could hear. You called my terrain reading. I know. How? I paid attention. He exhaled. Not quite a laugh, but the shape of one. You pay attention to everything. Yes, he dropped her hand. Looked out at the field. Your father was the same way, wasn't he? She went very still. You're not going to tell me how you know that, she said. No, she looked at the side of his face, at the tension still running through him, the shoulder, the daze, the whole weight of who he was trying to be versus who his father needed him to be. Wade, she said. He didn't look at her. You didn't know what you were part of. He was quiet. The score manipulation. The campaign to push me out. Someone used you. Not the other way around. He was still looking at the field. Doesn't change what I did, he said. No, she agreed. But it changes what you are. And those are different things. He turned, finally, looked at her directly, his face stripped of the performance layer, down to the actual person underneath. Younger than he acted, less certain, more frightened. I don't know how to do this without. He stopped. Without the thing I've been doing, then you learn something else. That's why you're here. Not to confirm what you already are. To find out what else you could be. A long silence. Your terrain reading is yours, she said. Nobody gave it to you. You built it. Now do something with it that isn't about proving a point to someone who isn't even watching. She walked back toward the main building. She left it with him. What he did with it was his. That was how it worked. The results were posted at 1400. She stood at the board with the rest of the recruits. Write her name. Rise the outcome beside it. Third. Out of 43, she read it twice, stepped back from the board. Brennan was at the edge of the group. He looked at her with those unreadable light gray eyes and gave her one single glimpse that contained approximately the weight of a paragraph. She nodded back. That was enough. Fiona appeared at her shoulder. Third overall, Fiona said. Flat. Like she was reading a grocery list. Third, out of 43. Reva looked at the board again. Her name in black ink on white paper. Plain, undramatic, completely real. She pressed fingers lightly against the dog tag through her jacket. You were right. You were right about the rooms, about building better ones. And I'm so angry at you for not being here to see this. So grateful for everything you left me. And both of those things are true at the same time. And I'm done apologizing for holding both. She took her hand away from her pocket. Third, she said. Third, Fiona confirmed. Then, because she was Fiona, I was second. I know. I'm telling you that as a fact, not a competition. I know that too. Fiona almost smiled. You're going to be annoying to work with. In the best possible way. She saw Wade at the edge of the group, not with Decker, not with Cass, alone, standing a little apart, reading the board with an expression impossible to interpret from a distance. She watched him long enough to see him find her name. Watch his jaw move slightly, then look away. She walked toward him. He saw her coming, didn't move toward her, didn't move away. She stopped a few feet away. Left shoulder, she said. Get it looked at before the next phase. There's a stress pattern that'll compound under load if you don't address it now. He looked at her. You're still doing that. Yes, the watching. The filing things away. That's how I work. A pause. Third, resentment. With something more complicated. Second would have been better, she said. But Fiona, something shifted in his face. The ghost of something lighter. Yeah, Fiona. She looked at him. He looked back. Two people who had started this course as adversaries and were ending it as something that didn't have a clean category yet. Not friends, not enemies, something in the unmapped territory between. Maybe that was fine. Maybe that was the more honest thing. You're going to be okay, she said. Not as reassurance, as assessment. He looked at her for a long moment. You don't know that. No, she agreed. But I think it's true anyway. She nodded once. Turn to go, Doyle. She turned back. He was looking at the ground. Then up the terrain reading. What you said about it. He started again. Nobody ever told me that was worth something. On its own, she understood what he meant. Not just terrain reading. All of it. The thing that was actually him, buried under the performance his father required. The thing no one had ever identified and named and said, this is yours. And it matters. She knew what that felt like. Exactly what it felt like to carry something real inside you that nobody looks at because they've already decided what you are. It's worth something, she said, Sybil. Certain, he nodded. Small, real. She walked back to where Fiona was waiting. Wade turned and walked toward the infirmary building, toward the medical station, his shoulder. He was actually going, which was a small thing, but real. 17:30, she was back outside, the sun going down over the ridgeline, sky moving from orange to pink to that deep blue that comes just before full dark. Stars just starting. She stood and watched, talking to the day, saying, thank you. Because that was usually enough. Gideon found her one last time. She heard him before she saw him. That unhurried, deliberate footfall she had learned to recognize over 10 days. He stopped beside her. They looked at the sky together. Next week, she said. Yes, different location. Yes, she looked at him. Will you be all right? He looked back, a slight shift, surprised at being asked. Then something warmer. Yes, always all right. That sounds like something my father would have said. He did say it. Frequently. And was he? A pause. Usually. The hard part was figuring out how to be all right in the moments when the usual methods didn't work. He figured it out, she said. He always did, so will you. He looked at her. She looked back. Two people who had been circling the same loss from different angles for 8 years, finding each other in a dusty compound in the middle of nowhere. What you do, doing what you do when you find someone who understands the shape of what you're carrying, you've got to wait the minute. You let the weight be even briefly. Gideon reached into his jacket and took out a photograph. Old edges, soft from handling, black and white, three people in field equipment. Squinting against bright suns, somewhere she didn't recognize, she looked at the faces. The man on the left. Her father, younger than she had ever seen him. His face had that quality she remembered, that particular ease, that somehow also alertness. Relaxed and fully present at the same time. Gideon on the right, also young, eyes the same. Where was this? Training exercise. About 9 years ago. Somewhere in the Southwest, he paused. Before the deployment, you kept this. Yes, she ran her thumb along the edge. Who's in the middle? A good man, Gideon said quietly. Who is no longer with us, she understood. Didn't ask for more. You should have this, he said. It's yours. I have the memory. He looked at her. You should have the picture. She folded the photograph carefully, put it in her jacket pocket against the dog tag. Her father twice over, she looked at Gideon, at this man who had carried an 8-year debt, who had crossed a room without hesitation and then done the most difficult thing available to him. Not rescued her, witnessed her. Thank you, she said. Thank your father, she thought. I will. Every day. They stood there a moment more, the light doing its slow work across the compound, the camp moving around them in the ordinary way of places that don't know they've just been the location of something significant. Then Gideon said, take care of that jaw. The compensation pattern you've been running is going to create a secondary issue in the TMJ if you don't work on it. She blinked, turned to look at him. He was completely serious. You were watching my jaw, she said. I was watching everything. That's my job. I thought your job was to observe training. The jaw, he said, is part of the training. She stared at him. He looked back. There it was. That full actual smile, the real one. Brief, warm, a little tired, she laughed. Real genuine. The kind that starts low and rises. He laughed too. A quieter version, but present. And for one moment, just one, in the last light over Camp Ridgeline. They were two people who had found something unexpected in a place designed exclusively to take things apart. The moment passed, as moments do. She picked up her bag. He stood with his hands in his pockets. Gideon, he looked at her. Thank you. For witnessing it, he held it, fully. Without deflecting, thank you, he said. For giving me something worth witnessing. She walked away, straight-spined, chin level, hair loose now from 10 days of not being pressed. Uniform long past neat, but entirely herself. Completely and unambiguously herself. Patrick Doyle's daughter. And also just Reva. Exactly herself. Which was, she finally understood, more than enough. The stars were out now. Cold and clear and enormous. She tilted her face up for one moment. eyes closed, talking to the day. Then she walked into whatever came next.